What's up guys, the Strong Boys 19 here and welcome to a new album review. Today I'm going to be reviewing the latest album from Finland-based melodic death metal band Kalmah with the new album of the self-titled album. This is their first album in more than a couple of years since their last album back in 2018, and this is another album to be released through a different record label. This is, I believe, the first album to be released through a label called Ranka Kustanus. If I have mispronounced it, I do apologize. Kalmah has been one of my favorite bands into the soundscape and the different spectrum into the melodic death metal genre. Their discography is completely jam-packed into a lot on the epicness and as exciting elements in variety onto the lyricism, on swamps to war and politics and many different things. And what is also a very noticeable, listenable approach is that the musicianship and the overall style has been as epically driven in powerful craft in their own right, and Kalmah's discography's own identity of music is nothing but a really strong and highly productive, passionate work of their material. This is a genre that has been one of my favorites, although I have not obviously been talking about this type of music a lot on the channel, but since that I have mentioned about other bands in this genre that I have loved, like Amon Amarth, to later eras of Carcass, and the classic 90s to early 2000s period of In Flames, Kalmah for me has been as unavoidable as one of my favourites. I remember the nostalgia when I was listening to this band around the first time when I was a teenager, hearing some of the tracks on their album Swamp Lord, and the song Hades was one that was completely amazing and was something that I did not expect to be just as anthemic, blistering with this greatness on my new beginning journey at the time of hearing this particular genre. Kalmah with this record have released this album to stand on their feet still, raising their fists in the air, and to be as unapologetic, to stick to their own guns. And what I can really say about the album as a whole was a really good, enjoyable listening experience. A lot of the songwriting on this album, to some criticism, can be quite repetitive, but it does not shy away still when the band are so confident to be as loud and as powerful enough. Because when I listened to this record, the band are still going strong into what they have been doing since their more than now 20-year long ongoing career as a band. The first few tracks, like onto the first three of Haunted by Guilt, Veil of Sin, and Scarred by Sadness, these separate songs are fantastic. They were totally worthwhile into so much of the excitement, the adrenaline, and the great sound of the band to grab the listener into their own striking behavior of their aggressive music, as big and monstrous with their whole craft, chugging riffs to these amazing beats and the really noticeable and awesome projected tonality into the growls that were so in your face. What's also just as amazing was the top-notch guitar work. The harmonic lines to the solos, they were as crisp and as beautiful to hear. This type of tone to cast right out, to pop through the speakers. The skills to the soloing were as precise and full into this whole wizardry. Other songs that I really enjoyed as much, like Taken Before Given and Home Sweet Hell, these later tracks for me remain as potentially one of the other heavier and quite darker moments, making various speeds to intrigue in a lot of the attack and the precision on this style of music. And some of these later tracks were really, really constant and as vicious in their efficient ways, with a lot of the tightness and the catchiness. Then at some points, the tracks like No Words Are Sad Enough and Red and Black, the band decides to sweeten things a little bit, as that's a bit of a weird word to say that, but when they calm things down, they can spread in some more into the switchable difference of adding more background soundscapes with some involving violins to some more keyboards and acoustic guitars, adding a separate melancholic element. And that is another really good thing about this record as well, because this band have always been going so intact and as immaculate in their whole musical presence, in their wild, heavy music, to change things around and paint another separate vision into making something as inspired as possible. Differences into these types of songs were as really good and adding some different touches into the band's instrumentation. The only negative that I will say about the record is the production. As I was heavily focusing so much into what was going on with the record, the drums have been placed backwards than moving them forward, as the production on earlier albums from Kalmah's discography, they were as pristine and, full of this huge, delicate tones on making sure that the mix was as perfection. But the drum sound to the overall mix was a little bit messy. It was like so loud in places to hear a ton of the vocals and the guitars, which they sound very, very good and as highly impressive, but it's that the whole thing is little bit difficult to digest. The drums were not showing the identity of itself as precisely as possible, just like what the other sounds of the recorded instruments were presenting through this whole approach of listening to this whole album. But despite that, and at some points, some bits of the predictability, there is so much that you could really get your teeth and ears into this band once more with this record. And with a lot of the tracks that I've mentioned in such a positive mood, I can safely say that this album is once again a really good record from this as talented and as gifted musicians as Kalmah. That's personally all I would like to say, with that being said, about the self-titled album from Kalmah. Let me know what you think of this record in the comments down below. Do you guys think that this is your favourite in a while in terms of the discography that's been going ahead all these years later? Is this one of your favourite releases of the year? Do you prefer the earlier stuff more than this? Or, as a fan of Kalmah yourselves, what do you actually think about this record with your own views? I'm going to give the self-titled album from Kalmah an 8 out of 10. It's a very respectable rating that I can highly give towards this record. There's so much enjoyment and the passion that was as fulfilling and as inspiring as possible, because Kalmah's music still never ceases to amaze me, and I always had a really good time when I listened to this band. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll keep you guys posted for more videos in the near future.